What's up, everyone? Welcome back. I got Shane Unruh with us with XS Asset Management. He works on large scale multifamily apartments. And interesting enough, we were just chatting about he started his real estate adventure after owning gyms. You owned and operated gyms, you said, for like 5 years, and you got into mobile parks. And I actually was telling a friend about, yeah, like I was doing research and I noticed a mobile park in Florida owned by like Wade Boggs was up for sale. And I was like telling my friends, like, yeah, mobile parks could actually be a good investment. So that's interesting that that's how you got your start in real estate. What was that experience like?
Yeah. First, thanks for having me on. Hopefully can provide some value to your listeners here. Yeah, for me, like similar to how you've seen a story there of a park that went up for sale. For me, it was I was owning and operating a gym, and we were looking for something else. We'd kind of grown it as big as we could. And I read an article, I think Forbes had put it out. It was called Mobile Home Park Millionaires. And it was how at the time they weren't kind of the asset class they are today, but it was all these hedge funds were buying them up kind of all across the States and Canada. And it made a lot of sense. I mean, you only own the dirt, right? The tenant owns the actual house or the mobile home. So the idea is that there's a lot less maintenance. It's too expensive for them to move out. It seemed like a pretty good gig, and I read that article, and the one in the town I was from went up for sale right around the same time, and got the numbers. Made a lot of sense. So
Made a lot of sense and hopefully made you a little bit of sense too in terms of money.
yeah, it was a good investment. I think like a lot of people who get into real estate, I got into it thinking it would be passive, and it definitely wasn't. It was a pretty stereotypical trailer park. A lot of there was drug dealers, drug users. It was kind of the whole thing. It had been run down, lots of old trailers. So we did a big flip on it. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it worked out long term for sure.
What was like the craziest story about owning a trailer? Well, I don't want to say trailer park. I'll call it a mobile home park.
Oh, the craziest one. I don't know. Like I said at the beginning, we were so new at it. We had no idea really what we were getting into. And now, like with our company, we have a system and a process for everything. But back then, all the rent was collected cash, right? So we would go to every door and you'd collect cash or check. And that was cool because you got this huge stack of cash, right? But yeah, it was more on there was some on the criminal side, and we had to work with the police and stuff to get those people out. But it, I don't know. I probably have crazier stories now with multifamily. We got a lot more units, but it
So you're
was
going from home to home collecting rent yourself.
yeah, we were home to home. It was at that time. I think it probably still this way. We sold the park, but the water had to be read manually every month. We're north of the border, so that we get a lot of snow. So we had to go, trudge through the snow every month and read the water. My wife's water actually broke at the park reading water, and then we were there 3 days later renovating a unit with the baby. So it was kind of our life for a while there.
That's a total whirlwind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't even seem like a real experience when you're in that moment in time.
No, no, but it was fun. I mean, we kind of my whole family, we always liked working and stuff. So it was, you were outside, and for the most part, it was a good experience.
Reading everything manually, that definitely gives you some appreciation for not having to do those sort of things with technology now with what you're doing currently at your multifamily apartments, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And it was cool too, because I remember walking through the snow one day to read water, and the lot rent is a lot cheaper than like renting an apartment, right? Because you're just renting the lot, and people would always give you every excuse in the book why they couldn't pay their rent, just like in our business now. But you'd go through there and you'd see, a brand new vehicle sitting because you're at every unit every month, and you'd see a new TV box or a new vehicle outside, or they'd be smoking outside. And I'm like, well, you can afford all that, and you can't afford a few $100s rent. So yeah, you definitely cut your teeth as a landlord.
Can you recall the craziest excuse anyone ever gave you?
You know what? We had a tenant there, and she gave me all kinds of excuses that she had got sick, and then her kids were sick, and just everything you could imagine. And it was a pretty small community we were in, and that was in at like kind of at the beginning of December. And then at Christmas, she posted a picture. Her and her husband had got brand new vehicles for his and hers vehicles for Christmas. So I remember that one, thinking that was kind of funny how that worked out. But
Hmm. People just don't hold themselves accountable. And it seems like I don't know. It's like almost when you're at different levels in your economic state, it seems like those sort of folks, their mindset like holds them back from like holding themselves accountable, being able to follow through and do the things they need to do to perhaps get out of the mobile park and get into a nicer place like what you're doing now.
yeah, and that I mean, in my opinion, that's kind of the system that's failed those people. It's not, most of them, they don't teach the financial education in school or anywhere. They don't know. You get the money and you spend it, and that's kind of the way our society is built. You have credit, and I don't think there's a lot of education for people out there. But yeah, we hear it all the time. Even now, people will say, "Oh, we can't pay the rent because we have bills to pay." I'm like, "Well, this is a bill to pay. Like, I got a mortgage on the building. I got to pay the taxes, right?" So it's where people put their priorities, and I think some of it's education based for sure.
Totally. And with owning a gym and then going into mobile parks, was there any overlap there that you took from what you learned at operating a gym that translated to success in real estate?
Um, I don't know. I guess just the overall, like, I guess it kind of gave us the confidence. Like, up until then, pretty much my entire family and extended family farmed. No one had really ran a business. So when we started the gym, it was kind of the first time in, and me and my wife did it. We jumped in, and, you learned retail and marketing and sales and all that stuff. But then once you do one thing, it kind of gives you the confidence. Had we not done anything to go buy a big park, you maybe wouldn't have had the confidence to do it because you would have had to figure everything out. But once you've done it and it was successful, you do the next thing. And then we bought a second park, and then we jumped into mobile home or multifamily. So I think it was more the confidence than anything, and how to deal with people. You'd have the same people couldn't pay their gym membership, right? It's all sales. It doesn't really matter what you sell. It's kind of all the same game.
So you farmed yourself, your family did? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a kind of like a Mennonite community, so it's its own school system, right? I'm the first one in my family to go past grade 9. But so pretty much everyone, it's farming or construction, some type of business like that. So yeah, we farmed. I farmed with my mom and dad, and then when they split up, me and my mom farmed for, I don't know, pretty basically up until we opened the gym. So the majority of my life was farming. It was like grain farming, not cattle.
Does does being the first one, so you're the first one to finish school in your entire family?
Yeah, and that's only high school. I didn't go on to college or anything like that. But yeah, that's the way that they have their own school system, and then it goes to grade 9. You're doing probably grade 12 work, but they just start working. Like, most of them now, I think it's required. That's changed since I was there, but I think it's required they take a GED or some kind of equivalent of grade 12. But most of them are going to be farmer or doing something like that where education doesn't hold a lot of value there.
Yeah. Is that strange that you're like the only one in your family so far to like finish school? Like, is that like weird? Do people make fun of you for it? Be like, oh, like
No, I don't think it's like, well, which way they're making fun because not my family's not educated, or my family's making fun of me.
making fun of you, like, oh, here comes college boy, or here
Oh, no.
comes,
No, not at all. No, we had left. Like I said, that was a Mennonite community, and my family had left that when I was a bit older. So we're still friends with them. They're not like that at all. It's a great community, and there's no nothing like that. And now it's changed. Like I said, since I was there, that was, you know, 15 years ago now. They're a lot more progressive, and I think more of them are taking the equivalents and doing other things. Farming has gotten, it used to be everyone could have a small farm, and now it's just there's a couple big farms, so that's no longer the primary thing, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Bill Gates like owns most of the farmland in North America, which is, I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's not a good thing. There's a lot of that where it's corporate farms. I mean, there's farms that, in order to do it properly, equipment and everything's so expensive. You have to, well, where we are, I mean, you have to have probably 5,000 acres to make a go of it. The bigger farmers are 10,000 or more. So it used to be where you could have 1,000 acres and have a nice life, right? And that kind of has went away. When you're spending $1 million on one piece of equipment, you need a lot of land, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of change to throw at one thing to harvest what you are
Yeah.
planning and paying
Yeah.
attention to now.
Yeah.
So you have this mobile park, you transitioned from gyms, you were on a farm, you finished school. When you sold the mobile parks, I know a lot of people that are in real estate do like 1031 exchanges where you like buy one real estate and then you transfer to another. Like, what was that transition like? And were you able to take advantage of anything when you made that sale to, alleviate taxes? It would be interesting to hear what that was like, because most people never owned a mobile park before.
Yeah. Well, I can't help that. The 1031 exchange, we're in Canada, so the 1031 exchange is American. We don't have that. So we couldn't take advantage of that. But there's lots of, I mean, that's the beauty of real estate, is there's a lot of tax benefits. It really doesn't matter where you are, right? That's that most of the system is built on that. So yeah, we definitely, you didn't pay a whole bunch of taxes, not like if you had sold a lot of other businesses. So we could take advantage of that. And we actually kept the parks. Like we had got into multifamily, and we kept the parks for a little while. We had sold the gym and our house and everything, got into this business, and then we sold them a couple of years in.
Mm-hmm. And when you were looking for multifamily, like what was your process like to find that first property? And then you were like, this checks all the requirements for us to move forward and essentially go all in on this adventure.
Yeah. So initially, I probably didn't have a process. I mean, you just wanted it to cash flow, and pretty naive at the beginning. Like the first two buildings we bought before we started the company we have today they were just small 8-unit properties. And it was more based on, hey, we have this amount of capital. What's the most building we could buy? So we were looking for VTBs and anything we could. Right now, I wouldn't do any of that. But back then, it was just getting something, right. And it was, yeah, we didn't know probably what to look for exactly. And we found the first building, and on paper, everything looked great. You're reading a pro forma and it looks like you're expecting that. And pretty much everything that could have went wrong did. I mean, that first one was the worst asset we've bought by far. And that was kind of it, just a learning lesson, right?
For sure. So on paper, everything looked good. Then what happened?
Yeah, so it was kind of a unique situation where, for one, the guy was willing to do VTB so we could get a bigger building. We didn't have to put a lot of money in. Bigger as in 8 units, not big. And it had a really unique program that had been kind of grandfathered in, where all of the rents in the building were subsidized above market rent, and all the vacancy was covered. So you essentially were going to have 100% full building for, as long as you could run it. The tenants were all good. There was a change of government right when we took over, and that got canceled. So as the people left, that program was canceled. So that kind of hurt, because then you're trying to figure it out, and that was right when the first lockdowns and stuff kind of happened going into that, and the neighborhood changed. We had it within the first 2 years, 4 of the 8 tenants passed away. It was just like fluke that had happened. We had the boiler went, one of the tenants they had wrecked something in their unit. Instead of talking to us, they called the tenancy branch or the health and safety, and they came and measured, and like they come and do a whole inspection, and like the railings were 1/4 inch too big. So we had to replace all the railings, and it just one thing after another, and it just became a sinkhole for money, basically.
So when someone passes away, did you have to like go in there and clean it all out? Like, what was that like?
Yeah. Yeah, we've had some interesting stories there. We have a company we call, sometimes though, I mean, it's our guys. Like now we have a management company and stuff, so it's not me doing it, but you will get where they have to go in and find the body, right? And that's never fun. And we've had them. I mean, yeah, we've had some pretty bad deaths in the buildings. Now you just with scale, you're gonna have that, right? So generally we don't clean it up ourselves. We have a company that's all they do is come in and clean them up, but it's part of the business for sure.
So you started out at these mobile parks, going door to door in the snow with your pregnant wife, collecting rent, to getting a 8-unit multifamily, and then everything under the sun went wrong. At what point did you just start to like, I gotta start putting some processes in place. I gotta start investing in help because this is not sustainable for one person at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so kind of we had that. We bought a second smaller building, kind of the same way. We had some partners and we bought the first one, we bought the second one. What kind of changed for us was in 20 it was right at I believe the beginning of 2020, we went down to a conference and the guy just talked about, if you're not at a place where you can grow, you need to move, right? You're not a tree, you don't have roots, you can move. And me and my wife had a 5-year plan to move from where we were anyways. And on the way home, we decided, look, let's do it now. So as soon as we got home, we listed the gym, and lucky for us, I mean, it sold right away. The sale went through the first 2 weeks of lockdown. So had we waited, that never, because at that time people still did think it was going to be 2 weeks, right? And had we waited even a month to make that decision, we would have, I don't know, maybe not went bankrupt, but we would have been set back 10 years owning a gym, and it was closed for 16 months where we lived. So we basically then sold everything. We sold our house and moved to where we are now. And that's when we started the business that we have today. So we started buying a bigger multifamily, and we always knew we wanted to run it essentially like a fund, which is what we do now. So that's when we started putting everything in place and hiring people.
So essentially, you took the alchemist approach. Essentially, when you really want something and you put everything that you have behind it, the universe is gonna conspire to make things start working for you. Was that a hard decision to do with you and your wife? Your wife was pregnant at the time or about to give birth?
Oh, well, we have 3 kids now. So I don't think she was pregnant right then when we moved. We had 2 little kids. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always a big decision, and you're going all in on something, right? Like we sold, and we had, like, that's where I had lived my whole life, and we moved about 10 hours out west, and yeah, we sold the gym, we sold our house, I got everything in the house sold, and we basically put it all into the first bigger property here, and it was just us, so we were doing the renovations and the turnover and everything. So that's, yeah, when you don't have a backup plan, I think you're forced to make it work. I think people have to do that a few times in their life. So
Yeah, too many people give up so fast. You have to give something a real chance before you can identify whether it's a good decision or a bad decision. You go to a restaurant, could be the best restaurant. You get one bad experience. That doesn't mean it's a bad restaurant. It just means you had one bad experience. And investing or starting any company or getting in the real estate is no different. Like your first one was the hardest because you didn't really know what you were doing. Now it seems like you are like, all right, like this is a problem. How do we solve this problem? Let's put a process in place. Okay, we call Jerry when this goes wrong, or we call Ashley when this goes wrong. And then that way you're starting to build a team. So what was the first step to start building out your team so you could scale and get your time back?
yeah, on that, I think the first thing that changed my mindset, and I'm sure you've read the book, but like the 10X rule, like Grant Cardone, if you've read it. But up until that point, I had a plan. Even before we did the mobile home park, I was like, I liked the idea of real estate. So I had drawn on a little piece of paper, I was going to own 10 rental properties in 10 years, right? That was kind of my plan. And then I read that book, and I was like, oh, maybe we set the goal a little higher and work our way back, right? That's kind of the idea. And that's what we did. So initially it was 100, and then I was like, well, that's not big enough. So we set it at 1,000 units, and then you just work your way back. So you're like, what does that look like? Because if we're going to buy 1,000 units, I can't be buying 10-unit buildings, right? I have to buy scale. And we had a pretty short timeline to do that in. And I was like, if we, what kind of people do we need? If we hire someone now, can we afford to pay them, when we get more scale? And you set the goal, the flag farther out there, and work your way back. And that's kind of what we did.
I'm going through a similar thing. It's you start hiring people to do things for you, to take things off your plate, and then you have to give them time to figure out how to do it all.
Yeah.
And it could be a little frustrating because it's like I'm paying someone, I could be giving myself that money, I could be doing all these things. However, in order to get to that next level, you really have to take that leap of faith and start believing in people to help you on your mission to that. How many units is the goal? 1 million? 10,000?
Maybe not a million, but 10,000, yeah. And then up from there, I guess. We want to have just under 10,000 in the next 10 years, and that's kind of our like our short-term goal, and then we'll go from there.
And with people such as Mr. Grant Cardone, we won't say anything about him because I saw that if you talk too much about him, he'll come find you and serve you with something.
Yeah.
Is it really as simple as people make it seem to buy these sort of projects? Or is it really you have to be like seriously committed, such as you sold pretty much everything that you own in order to make this happen?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Like the reality is, some people have the money to start with it. You can go out and buy the property, but there is like in the market we're in, certainty of close is what both the sellers and the brokers want to see. So if they have a buyer that they know, he's going to get that property over someone new. So getting into the market and getting established is hard. I always think where we spend all our time is on our effort right now to build out is on the management of the property. So anyone in reality can go buy a property, but you need to manage it properly. There's very few companies that do that, I think. And that's the hard part. That's the unsexy part. So I think that's the part that we work on. As far as buying it, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on social media that is kind of misleading as far as like, oh, they're only going to look at the property and they don't look at the buyer and stuff. Like yeah, you can do it. In reality, it is easier now for me to go buy 100 units than it was to buy 8, but it took a while to get here. It's not like going and buying I couldn't have even got the first building. You still need net worth requirements and all these things, right?
Totally. I get people all the time that they're like, "Hey, I want to start an Airbnb or a Verbo or start getting rentals. I want passive income." Or I get people who are W-2 employees and they're like, "Oh, I want to buy real estate to lower my taxes." And when you're like a W-2 employee, you really can't. You have to like start a business, but that's not going to help you with your personal tax situation. And a lot of people don't understand that. On the flip side, you are essentially all in on your business. So you're getting everything on the business side, all the deductions, and then obviously things are passing through to you and your family in the form of income. Is this even doable unless you're all in? Because I feel like unless you're all in, it's really you're setting yourself up for failure because it just takes so much time, effort that people don't have or don't realize being a landlord is not easy dealing with all those sorts of folks.
Yeah, 100%. I always say it's doable, but it probably shouldn't be done. Like if you have a good paying job, I think what gets missed in real estate is, let's say you make 100 grand at your job, right? To go even if you go out and buy property, if you're going to do it on your own, to replace that job, like if you're going to quit your job and go do that, you're going to need, you need $1 million invested at 10%. Now that's nothing being reinvested back in your property. That's just so you can live your lifestyle. So I always think if people can do it where they can work their job and be putting money passively into something, whether that's with someone else or whatever that looks like, but to go do it on your own and think you can do it part-time, it's tough. Like in a good market, if you want to buy good assets, you're dealing with, like we have a team of people that all they do is work on this. All we're doing is managing the property, working on it. So you part-time working your job and trying evenings and weekends to compete with us, it's not going to work well, So I think there's an ego component to it, and some people, everybody's built differently too, right? Like I probably personally wouldn't have invested with someone else because I wanted to learn it and do it. For the vast majority of people, doctors, dentists, lawyers, whatever those people are, if you can make the kind of money you can make and be putting it in, I think you're going to make more money long term because you're going to be invested in better assets. And if you bought them yourself, you're going to have none of the headache. Like it's not fun. I mean, for the first years of owning both the park, it was like every vacation we went on, we would land and you'd look at your phone and there's a water leak or there's something going on. So that's, it's not a part-time thing in my opinion. You can maybe build a small portfolio, but to really make money in real estate, I think you need scale, and it's hard. You can't get scale part-time and it's very hard to do it on your own.
Are you developing a fund right now people can put money into? I believe you alluded to that earlier.
Yeah, we have essentially a fund. Yeah. So after we had bought two two of our bigger properties, when we bought our third one, we rolled them all into what we have today. And yeah, people invest with us, and then they're partners in the deals. But it's not deal specific. So they come in, they're part owner in all the properties essentially.
Right. They're buying shares of the property based on how much they're putting in. And so let's walk people through that. If I gave you, let's just say $100,000 for a property, like what would that look like to me as, part owner of this fund? Could you walk us through that?
Yep. So we don't do a deal specific. So you wouldn't be coming in a property. You'd be coming in as a small owner of all of the properties, right? But essentially, and just to, some of these things are going to be different in Canada and the States as well. In Canada, the way it's done, we have it set up as a limited partnership. So you come in, the benefits of coming in as a limited partner, you don't sign on any of the debt. So you obviously can risk losing your money, but there's nothing above that, right? So that's a benefit. In Canada as well, there's flow through. I know you guys have accelerated depreciation and stuff down there. We have just different tax benefits, but usually the benefits can pass down through to the investor. So the way we do it, we pay everyone out return of capital first. So, there's no taxes that's paid out. We pay monthly distributions, but essentially for the investor, they can come out, they can look at the properties, see how they're managed. They don't have to deal with the tenants and all of the negative stuff that comes with it. And they can benefit from the upside of the building, the mortgage pay down, the cash flow, right? So,
So with that investment, like what would someone expect to like start receiving, year one versus, 2, 3, 4, 5, just to put some color around this, because a lot of people are just throwing chips at different investments without even knowing how it works.
Yeah, 100%. And we do, like, our model is kind of different too. There's a lot of guys that do like offer really, really high returns, and it's in a 2 or 3 year period. I always tell people, like, the way I look at real estate investing, it's kind of like landing a plane, right? If the pilot dies and I'm in there, if I have a really short, narrow runway, probably going to crash in, right? If I have a long enough runway, maybe it's 100 miles wide, someone's guiding me down, there's a good chance we land it. And that's the way I look at real estate. So our hold period is 8 to 10 years, right? I'm not telling people you're getting all your money out in 2 years. We're going to do this refi and interest rates are going to go down. I don't know any of that. So it's like, we want to hold long-term wealth. I believe is just built. The assets going up in value. Generally, it's going to outpace inflation on the way up. You're paying down the mortgage. Debt is getting eaten away by inflation on the back end. You're getting some cash flow. So we have a set distribution. We pay out 8%. It's annually, but we pay that out monthly. So that starts as soon as someone invests with us, it's on the 15th of the next month, they get paid. And then it's on the, kind of whatever the property does. So with mortgage pay down depreciation, I tell everyone our goal is kind of 2.5 times. So you'll have all your money back, and it's 2.5 times in 10 years is what we shoot for. Could it be much higher? Yeah. Could it be less if things go really, really badly? But I mean, property, you can kind of look at what rents have done for 100 years and have a pretty good idea what they're going to do. We've printed a lot of money. The actual inflation rate's coming down, but it's coming down from a pretty high number. I think we have a couple of good years to come, and we'll see where it ends up.
Are a lot of people United States investing with you?
No, right now, no.
Are they allowed to, or no?
You know what? I would check. We have never advertised down there. I think we can have them come in, yeah. But right now, it's only Canadian.
Yeah, to me, that'd be an interesting currency play too, from someone who's like stateside. The currencies are always changing. A lot of people don't realize that currency is the reason a lot of things that are bad happen around the world, such as war. It's typically because of currency, and that's what a lot of people are talking about, cryptocurrency and stuff like that, and how it could affect the dollar and other currencies, because if a currency collapses and people can't go out and buy food, that'd be really bad. So I found that interesting. Is like, hey, I invest in this Canadian company. It's almost like a currency hedge between dollars and I don't know, the CAD.
Yeah, it's not worth a lot right now, 70 cents or something like that, but
70 cents on the dollar. So if someone listens to this in America, your money goes a little bit longer. Over in Canada, you can get a little bit more of the fund over there. What are interest rates in Canada similar to the States?
Yeah, we're generally always slightly lower. So that's one reason. Canada is probably in the worst housing situation anywhere in the world right now. It is absolutely awful. And, our government has massively increased immigration, like to a ridiculous number. And Canada has never been able to meaningfully increase our housing supply. So we built more houses in 1970 than we do today. And, we'll build, as a country, we only built 220,000 units last year. That's total. And our population grew by over 1 million. So and now it's grown by over 1 million in less than a year already. So, it just, the numbers don't make sense. So it took a while to eat through the vacancy we had in the country, but we're at an all-time low. The country has the lowest vacancy ever. Almost every major city, maybe they say it's 2%, but it's essentially zero. Like, we've had zero vacancy in our portfolio this entire year. And it's like, it's desperation out there for tenants, and it's only going to get much worse. I mean, they're not slowing immigration. Building has slowed even more. And, when interest rates come down, that might change. We'll have a change of government, I'm sure, in the next 18 months, but it's a long road. So a guy had just put out a book on how to fix the Canadian housing crisis. And he said, if you did every single thing in this book, there was 10 or maybe 50 things. He said, in 10 years, it will start to get better. And in 20, it would be normalized if we did everything, but we can't, right? No different than in the States. You have an issue too, where you can want to build as much as you want, but the reality is, for every 7 construction workers leaving, there's 1 coming in, right? So the construction workers are going, we don't have the people to build them. We can't, we have a lot more red tape here than you guys do. So just the building process takes about 10 times as long, and it's bad here. I mean, and I don't know, for us as a landlord, as an owner, it's all good, but I seen vacancy when we moved here. Vacancy was 7, then it went to 4, then it went to 2.6, and it's supposed to be under 2 this year. But I mean, that's 2% of the city. There's a lot of bad units there that'll never rent, so it's pretty close to 0 in the country right now. And they're still immigrating in a ton of people. So
From where are people coming from?
that's anywhere they can get them. I mean, see, the problem too is, like, they'll show the numbers. They'll just show, the permanent residents that are moving here, and that number is 500,000. But then we have 500,000 students that come here, and we have all these temporary workers, and we have natural population growth, right? But right now, I think the biggest place we get people from is India, and a lot of that's education based. Our schools, the way it works, I mean, it's become a huge problem where foreign students are paying a ridiculous amount. So it's like a big business to get them in here, right? But I think India is the place where maybe 20% of them come from, and then it's all over. Anytime there's any kind of issue anywhere in the world, our government just opens up for people to come. But it needs to be targeted. I mean, it's starting to be a thing where people come here, they can't find places to live, the cost of living's too high, and so it's a problem. Like, it has to be very targeted. Immigration's a great thing, but it needs to be done. People need a place to live. They need to be able to afford to live when they get here, right?
What is it about Canadians that makes them so nice? Like, you're like, hey, you want to come? Come on in. Like, and I've never met a mean Canadian. What is it about the Canadian culture that where everyone's so friendly?
Yeah, I don't know. We get that all the time, but yeah, the sentiment has kind of changed now. I mean, people are fine with, but the government is the one who's letting everybody in, and I don't think this, like, again, everyone's for immigration, but it's just too much where people can't find places to live. And but yeah, I don't know. I guess it probably is because we're a country mostly of immigrants, right? And so everyone we're not really dug in. It's a little different than the States, where I think you guys have a little more autonomy as a state than we have as provinces. And I wish we had that. The federal government oversteps a little too much in some areas. So, but it's supposed to be more of a country, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, can only control what you can control. So, like, outside, the only really big places I know in Canada, and correct me, Toronto, the real estate market there, from what I've read, is nuts. The other big place I know is like Montreal and Vancouver. Where are some like hidden gems in Canada that like people are, completely missing out on right now that you're starting to see some growth?
Yeah. Well, I think we're in one of them. So we're in Alberta. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you know much about it, but it'd be, we're similar to Texas as far as like we're the fourth biggest oil reserve in the world. We're all resource based. There's lots of natural gas. We're the highest earning population. We're the youngest population by far in Canada. So we're one of the few places we don't have any kind of rent control here, where a lot of places in Canada do. So we're one of the few places that had enough supply that we could have absorbed some of this. So we have the biggest net migration by far in Canada is here right now. We're growing really quickly. And again, it's all the young people that are moving here, which is good for the economy, good for long term. So I like it here because we're still buying at decent cap rates. We can still get cash flow, and there's still some deals. To go buy in Toronto, Vancouver, great if you own stuff there, but I mean, the cap rates you're paying and how tough it is to get in those markets, it's it's not for me for sure. But
Yeah, someone was telling me how much housing prices were in Toronto, and I was like, for what? It just is, so many people are living there now. It's just such a huge population and such a low supply of housing. Is that what the issue is you were illustrating for us?
yeah, essentially, yeah, they have. It's just we haven't been able to build enough for so many years, and the population keeps growing. But yeah, those markets they're wild. Like it's kind of a joke here. I mean, people have all the time. There's these videos that get really viral where it's like, what can you buy in Toronto or Vancouver versus a European castle, right? And it's like you got like this crappy, 1 bedroom tiny house that's falling down for $1.5 million, or you can buy a castle, or like here we see a lot where it's like, what could you get for this price in Texas, right? And you can get these awesome houses. Like the average, you don't get much anymore. Alberta is still slightly more affordable, but yeah, you go to those cities and a small condo is $1 million. Like it's just, and it's not like they have, the cost of the income to rent ratio in Vancouver and Toronto is 70 to 80%, right? So you can't live a good life there. Like here it's 30, right? And people complain about it. So if you're spending 80% of your before tax income on rent, you're not, you don't have money to live, right? So it's become a problem for sure.
Sounds like it'd be fun if you're a young professional, get a couple roommates, start slumming a little bit, live in the big city. It's probably a lot of fun, especially during the summertime, living up there in such a market such as like Toronto. But it seems like you're doing it all. How do you 10x what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think with real estate, it's kind of I mean, you can look at the companies who have, 10x what we've done, or 100x. And it is, I think we're on that path where the growth at the beginning doesn't look crazy because you're going from here to here, but on a long enough chart. And for me, like the equation with real estate is always kind of time. So how you talked at the beginning, you mentioned, people underestimate kind of what they can do in the long term, and in the short term they overestimate what they can do. Real estate's kind of that way. Once you sit on a property for 5 years, there's a lot of equity there, and once that debt starts turning over, that equity can get put into new stuff. So time helps us a lot, and it's our ability to raise capital and deal flow are the only thing that kind of keeps us from going where we are. But we've been working, really hard on all the system side, on the property management side, and building out that network. So I think there's an opportunity here in the next couple of years, and yeah, we plan to scale it up for sure.
This is great. Basically, anyone out there, you got to get started, get your hands dirty, whether you're starting with a tent that you're renting out or a mobile park. You just got to get in the game, start playing it, and then start putting those processes in place so that way you are not going to go nuts with spending 27 hours every day working on something. So this is fun. I'm glad I have had you on. Thanks everyone tuning in. We'll see everyone next time. Bye everyone.